Hello guys, so the Gandalf Gambit is back with another video and this one is going to be just crazy. Now for all of those who are watching and don't know what is a Gandalf Gambit, let me briefly explain. You start with black pieces and you play for the Scandinavian defense. You let them capture the pawn, but instead of recapturing right away, you develop your knight to f6. And here, if white goes for this solid pawn to c4 supporting their d-pawn, here you are going to play pawn to e6, you get rid of another pawn, and now you develop a bishop to c5. You see this little guy with a pointy head? Yeah, that's our Gandalf. And the point of this opening is that you actually want your opponent to capture on f7, so you can develop the Aragorn to f7, and for the cause of two pawns you will have a tremendous lead in development and a position that is just full of traps. Now for that you're gonna have to check out the other video, because today we are going to be looking at the declined variations. Despite Gandalf being a pretty old guy, he actually gets accepted all the time. Yeah, he's laughing. But even if he is declined, he gets to have so much fun. Let me show you. The most common way of declining the Gandalf Gambit is just to continue development for white. So knight to f3 is the most common way of declining this gambit, and here I continue with knight to c6, still insisting on them to capture the f7 pawn, which would transpose back to the accepted variations. But if my opponent is stubborn, they will ignore this and they will simply continue developing, and bishop to e2 is the most common way of developing, because they just want to get castled quickly and have a safe king, right? Well, in this case I like to make a little bit of a pause right here and only then get castled myself. This is a little mind game, and now they will be like thinking what to do with this pawn. Because they can either like ignore this pawn and just get castled, but that would like let me develop my light square bishop, winning a pawn in the process. Or the other option is to capture on f7, at least expose my king a little bit, but help me develop my rook instead. But at least they're not losing a pawn for free, right? So I think because of this, most guys are actually going to be grabbing the pawn on f7 in this position, and this is what I want them to do, because I just love my rook open on the f-file. Now in this position, like 99% of them are simply going to get castled and be safe. At least they think they are. And here we go with our attack, knight to g4. We are aiming at this f2 pawn with our pieces, and it may look untouchable, so white might think, let me just kick this knight away, and we surprise them with knight captures on f2. Wait, what is it?
Up 2 pawns. What I would not recommend almost ever is to give up a knight and a bishop for a rook and a pawn.
Yeah, Levi, but let me show you. In this case, we have a strong follow-up. So the rook captures the knight, of course, bishop captures the rook, king recaptures, and queen to d4 check. Now the engine is saying that the best way to run away with the king is to go forward, but who is going to be playing that? Like maybe some cheaters. And if the king goes back, white is saying, are you done yet? Are you done yet? No, rook captures on f3. So the bishop recaptures, and now remember this important move, bishop to f5. With this we want to control the d3 square, and we are actually setting up a checkmating net. So if white is not careful about this and just go like a normal knight to c3 trying to catch up with development, it is checkmate into with queen to g1 check and knight to d4 checkmate. But I mean, like, even if they notice our threat with bishop to f5 and they play the correct move, which is pawn to d3, they're toasted anyway because of rook to e8 check, and now the engine is saying like, hey, give up the queen, man, it's over. Alright, let's go back. So what if their king hides on f1 instead? Well, here we are going to change the strategy a little bit and we want to go knight to e5. Putting pressure on this knight, and well, what should they do? The engine has a ridiculous answer and they should play pawn to a4. But who is going to be playing this? Like nobody. And the point of pawn to a4 is to bring the rook this way to be able to put some cover to this poor knight, but it is too slow anyways and the position is like -6. But let's see some normal looking moves. So what if they play like pawn to d3 to try to elaborate this bishop? Well, we first are going to trade this knight and then once again bishop to f5 with the intentions of capturing here with a check, and they simply cannot protect the pawn. They have nothing. So let's say they will develop a knight to c3, we capture with a check, and now they have at least this knight to cover this check, because otherwise the king would have to go to this square and the rook is coming. Well, but guess what? The rook is coming anyways, and the problem for white is that their pieces are not coordinating well, and we are just too quick with joining the attack with other pieces, and well, they cannot protect this knight with anything else, so they are toasted. Let's go back and let's just see the Stockfish recommendation, and that is king to g3 here. But after this we are going to slide our queen back with this check, so they are forced to go back to f2, and now bishop captures on h3. What a move, and I dare you to capture my bishop, because if they do, now we have this devastating queen to h2 check, and well, the king can start running around half naked, but you know, this is lost for white. Alright, well, that's enough of the variations with them playing pawn to h3. What are their other options? Well, knight to c3 is like a natural move that even Stockfish is recommending at first, then it realizes that it is a losing move. And you can continue with knight to d4. And what are they going to do here? Well, for example, if they still go with h3 harassing the knight, once again you are ready to sacrifice a knight on f2. Knight captures on f2, rook recaptures. Now it's important to capture the knight on f3, so the bishop recaptures. Now you grab the rook, king recaptures, and once again queen to d4 is a strong follow-up. This has a potential to transpose right into the line that we just explored if they go king to f1. It's still bishop to f5. Now their best move is pawn to d3, which we are going to capture. So knight blocks, and of course rook to e8. So this we already have seen. What if the king goes to e1? Well, it's bishop to f5 once again, and here the engine is recommending queen to e2. We can continue with bishop to d3 harassing the queen. So they might go for a queen trade like this, and we go rook to e7, pinning the queen, so no queen trade for you. And the white goes like, a free rook, nyam nyam, mate. Alright, let's go back. And how about king goes to g3? Well, it is similar as in the previous line. Now we go queen to f4 check, king slides back, and once again bishop captures on h3. And if they recapture here, rook to f8 is the winning move, as there is no way to protect this bishop. Alright, so h3 is not working for them at all against Gandalf Gambit declined. So how about they just simply grab this knight? White c pieces rolling to the fight. White wants to trade the pieces, right? Seems like a good strategy. So knight captures on d4. Well, hold your pointy heads, because here comes knight captures on f2. What? Once again they fall for this. So the rook captures. But of course our queen recaptures on d4, and now ain't nobody got time to save this poor pinned rook, as it is being hit 1, 2, 3 times and is only protected with this half naked king. So the white can hit the resign button right here, and let's go back one more time. So what else can they do after knight to d4? Well, there is one other move which seems to be solving all of the problems, and it is knight to e4. Now this f2 pawn is covered, this bishop is under fire, white seems to be doing pretty good job defending and creating counterattack on his own, right? No. Here we are going to devour all their hopes with the rook captures on f3. And what can they do? Well, they can capture the rook, but here comes queen to h4, threatening a checkmate. So they need to deal with this with pushing the h-pawn, but our knight is going to slide back to e5, introducing another set of problems for them. So what can they do? Let's say they try to push the d3 so they can open up this bishop, but here we are going to rip the king wide open with knight captures on f3. They have to recapture with this pawn, and now our bishop makes it to h3, threatening the rook. So what can they do? Well, let's say they will try to counter attack our strong Gandalf on this diagonal. Well, here comes queen to h5, threatening a checkmate in 4 moves after knight captures on f3. So they need to get rid of this knight, and here we deliver this quiet check with queen to g6, threatening a checkmate on g2 square, so they need to block this with their knight. Now we can recapture the bishop, and once again we have a threat of capturing here because the pawn is pinned. So the king slides to unpin himself, but queen comes to h6, threatening all sorts of discoveries, capturing this rook. And you know what is the saddest part about this? Now the engine is recommending something like queen to d2, just offering a queen to survive longer. It's not even funny anymore. If you are wondering where did white go wrong, it was right here in this position after knight to e5. The engine here is recommending just to give up a piece and be in a position that is -3, and they should play something like bishop to h5, which hangs this knight, or they can even play like knight to g5 and it is a free knight, and that way they could have a better game, which would be like -3, being down a piece. Okay guys, I think enough of the crazy lines. Let me just mention one last thing. In the beginning and in the opening moves, if they never capture on f7 and they just get castled, well, of course you just want to capture the pawn with your light square bishop, and in this position you are down a pawn, but you are better in development, and the engine is saying that white is a little bit better. And this could be one of the lines of the Icelandic pawn gambit, which I believe could be covered somewhere on YouTube. So if you are interested, you can search for that. And that's it. Anyways, have a nice time, have fun, take care, and bye. Oops, one more last thing guys, I totally forgot to show you the refutation of this. So we went for the Gandalf Gambit, and they declined with knight to f3. They kept declining, and then they captured on f7. They got castled, and we went knight to g4. So there is actually a correct move here for white, and it is actually to push pawn to d4, which just simply hangs a pawn, but it helps them to catch up with development. And this leads to this big trade. We can capture, and pretty much everything gets traded on the d4 square. They can even trade this knight for the bishop and end up in this position where they are still up a pawn. but it is very tricky for them because now they still have only one not losing move here, and that is knight to c3, and anything else is actually losing them the game. So if they find this correct move, you can do a bunch of things. You can, for example, just capture this knight, damage their pawn structure, and go bishop to e2, winning the pawn immediately. And in this position the material is equal, and actually it's them who have like two isolated pawns, giving you a better chances at the end game. So that's it, guys. Have a nice day, and have fun, and take care, and bye.